Ready?
Go.
So the names part, she read through the names. She did them all correctly. When she said L or I for L, I just skipped over it, and then she self-corrected. So I went back and I just put an SC for self-correct. And then for the QU, she said PU, so I wrote that, and again, she self-corrected, so I self-correct. So if she self-corrects, again, we're her accuracy, so she's at 26 out of 26, has her letter names. For sounds, we do the same thing. There were a few in here, like the L. I could tell she wasn't quite sure, and obviously she's struggled with it up here with her names, and so again, I just want to know if she knows her sounds, so I'm going to tell her what that letter is if there's some confusion. Same with BD, so she knows. I'm just looking if she knows that sound. So again, she had a couple errors, but she self-corrected, so she gets those points. When we get down to short vowels, typically if the child just reads the word, I put a check mark or leave it blank. If there's an error, I try to make the sound error. So she said I for but when she blended it back together, she self-corrected. And then nip, she sounded out, but when she blended it back together, she added that M in there. So again, I just wrote what she had said. The rest were good. Down here, when we got here, she really started obviously segmenting and blending up here. The real words, she was doing most of it in her head, so I didn't record that. But down here, it was more out loud. So each little line means that she said an individual sound. If she would have done like ought, then I would have scored it with the one line under those, but she didn't. So each individual sound, and then a check mark to say that, you know, she could blend it back together then, unless in this case she had a flip there. And then again, so she got 7 out of 10 just based on a couple of those single sound errors. And then when we got down here, I did the same thing again, coding just a line for if she was sounding it out, and if she didn't, then I just put the check mark or maybe drew a line underneath it and gave her 20. So by her score, she should have, accuracy-wise, been able to move on to blends and digraphs. But because she was sounding and blending each of these individually, and then again when she got down here to the words and the sentences, I didn't feel like her fluency or her automaticity of sounding and blending was high enough. She wasn't doing those things quickly enough for her to move on to something more difficult. If she would move on to this, she would still be sounding and blending, and we really need her to be able to read sat, pot, mott, tib, maybe not that quickly, but at least be able to make those sounds in her head and blend them out loud before moving on to something more difficult. So she stopped here for rate or automaticity purposes.
And so for an instructional group?
So for an instructional group, she would need to be placed at short vowels, probably the letter patterns, which would be the second short vowels lesson plan. She has the skill of sounding and blending, so we don't need to work on the skill, we just need to work on the automaticity. So we'd put her in that second one where they learn to start to chunk those endings or those word families together so that that blending becomes more automatic.